Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-hosts Jim Wilson, Newmark, Matthew Shapiro, Obermeyer, and Chris Carr, Ferrotech. Mr. Shapiro, could you please give us a rundown on who we have on the air today?
Love to, Herb. We got a great show coming up. We're starting off with Chris Banks, the president of the Banks Industrial Group. Then we have Sally Stetson, managing partner, Salveson Stetson Group. We're following that with Jason Boyers, the president of Rosemont College, and wrapping up today with Michael Raphael, the CEO of IndyVets.
Let's get to know our first guest, Chris Banks, president of Banks Industrial Group. Chris, what is Banks Industrial Group? What kind of stuff are you guys doing?
We're a construction company that focuses on maintenance and repairs for industrial clients, Herb.
And how large or how small is the team? Where are you from, and how many brothers and sisters?
35 people in our company. I'm from South Jersey. I grew up here, and I'm an only child with two older stepsisters and two younger half-sisters.
Okay. I assume that mom and dad were divorced when you were young, which is the stepsisters and so on and so forth?
My parents have been divorced since I was a toddler.
All righty. And what's the upside of your being an only child with parents who were divorced at an early age?
Well, it teaches you how to deal with attention without letting it go to your head, hopefully. And I think it teaches you self-reliance and how to be creative with your time.
How's all that stuff helping you as the president of Banks Industrial Group nowadays?
The self-reliance is pretty obvious. It makes me very resourceful and have to find ways to provide value.
Mm-hmm. What kind of stuff were you doing as a kid, 8 to 14 years old?
I was in the Scouts. I played baseball and then ultimately gave way to running cross country.
Okie dokie. Matthew?
Yeah, Chris, you told us when you were a kid, your dad was in sales and you got to observe a little bit about that driving around. Tell me about that.
Yeah, my father was an outside salesperson, and he was constantly, when we were in the car, we would constantly pull over to payphones everywhere. He knew where every payphone in South Jersey was. And frequently when we were together, we would stop and call clients.
So what did you learn from seeing how he knew where all the payphones were and seeing him pull over to make those calls? What did you learn for that you bring with you today to Banks Industries?
Well, for one, he was super resourceful in finding ways to reach out to his clients. And then second, the value of relationships. He was constantly reaching out to customers.
And at some point he got out of the sales gig and he actually started Banks Industrial Group, right?
He did. He was a salesperson and then decided to start his own company.
And were you really excited when you heard he was starting his own company?
Honestly, at the time, I thought he was crazy and I thought I was going to end up having to support him.
You thought he was crazy and you'd have to end up supporting him. Tell me more about that reaction.
Well, he had been a commissioned salesperson all his life, and I couldn't comprehend the risk at the time.
And why did you think you were going to have to support him? Like, why were you taking that on?
Because I was always super responsible and I was always looking for ways to give back.
Jim?
Yeah. Chris, you told us you played baseball growing up, but the team was too good, so you went in another direction. What other athletic endeavor did you pursue after that?
My stepfather was a cross country coach and he got me into that. So I started running cross country and track.
What did you like about cross country?
It's a really great sport that it mixes individual achievement and team cohesion, and it really relies on discipline and grit.
How does that relate to how you lead the Banks Industrial Group?
Well, every day you got to be disciplined to guide a company, and you got to be willing to fight through hard challenges.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Carr?
Chris, it sounds like you were raised by a single mom.
I was.
Yep. It sounds like you've also overcame a lot of challenges. How did that eventually lead to getting into the Naval Academy?
Yeah, what was the upside of being raised by a single mom? What did you learn from being raised by a single mom?
Well, my mother had 3 jobs at various times and would take me along with her. It showed how much sacrifice is required to raise a family and to make a living. And I accompanied her frequently on her jobs.
Yeah, what kind of job did you accompany her on, and what did you see, and what's that have to do with who you are?
Well, her primary job was as a teacher, and so I would spend a lot of time at her high school with her, and it taught me how to interact and interact with adults a lot older than me.
What's that have to do with who you are nowadays? How's that help you build this Banks Industrial Group?
Well, it helps you talk to customers because you have to learn to talk to people of all ilks, to include bosses that you've had, and anticipate needs and whatnot.
And also, Chris, was interested in getting a better sense of, you went to the Naval Academy. What did you pick up at the Naval Academy that has anything to do with business?
How to handle boatloads of stress.
What are you talking about? What do you mean?
The Naval Academy spends a lot of time trying to fill your bucket up and see what you do when it starts to overflow.
And that happens in business?
Every day.
You mentioned that you were raised by a single mom, and you went to work, you was a kid with your dad, and now you're running this company that your father started. Let's see here. Mr. Wilson, what other questions you got for?
Yeah, I understand you went to Catholic school, Chris. What kind of influence did that have on you?
Well, for one, my mom sacrificed a lot just to get me, just to pay for it. And so I learned a lot from that sacrifice, but they really, really drilled into me the value of responsibility and accountability.
Accountability and responsibility. What else did you pick up from Catholic school that has anything to do with running a business?
I was the person who did all of his homework in every stage of life after that. And I feel an obligation every day to do my homework.
So you have a sense of urgency and completion as opposed to letting things dilly-dally?
Absolutely. And preparation as well.
So you learned about preparation and urgency and completion in Catholic school? That has that application in business, huh?
Every day.
Chris, you said before, Chris, that there was a movie that I think was your inspiration for going into the service, right? What was that?
It's kind of cliche, but I saw Top Gun in 6th grade and told my mom that's what I want to be.
So I'm thinking when you see Top Gun, you had Kelly McGillis as the instructor, you had the big scene with the Russians and all of that kind of stuff. And that's what naval training and going to Navy is all about. Did you have Kelly McGillis as your instructor?
It's not at all like that at all.
And so I thought that's right, but it actually seems like what you really got out of the Navy was more in tune with who you are than it would have been to have had Kelly McGillis as your instructor. Is that fair?
It is absolutely fair. What naval aviation really taught me was the value of planning, briefing, executing, and then talking about lessons learned afterwards.
I understand that Banks Industrial is a successful business. I'm wondering if you ever give back to the community, and what's that look like?
Our business is heavily involved with the Ronald McDonald House Charities of South Jersey. And then I spend time giving back as a Naval Academy admissions counselor.
Why do you do that?
Try to find other kids that give them the same opportunity that I got.
Try to give kids the same opportunity that you had. But it doesn't sound like you had a lot of opportunity. I mean, your mother would drag you because she had to work 3 jobs, and your father would drag you to work. You felt gifted and benefited from all that stuff? What?
It was an honor to serve, and to get an education like I received, courtesy of the public, was a tremendous honor and privilege, and I'd like to see other people get that same opportunity.
So you seem to be a very appreciative and thankful kind of guy. I mean, and also responsible. I mean, when your father started the business, you were concerned that you may have to support him. And it sounds like with your mom that you took a lot of responsibility. So you've got this responsibility in you, don't you?
I saw the sacrifice that my parents made for me, and to get a free college education was my way of giving back to them.
Huh. So you're not a taker, you're a giver. But that's not what you typically hear. I mean, I thought business was all about lawsuits and taking and stepping on people. That doesn't sound like who you are.
Not at all. I think business is the exact opposite of what you just described.
What do you mean?
If you treat people well, they'll treat you well at the end of the day. Be fair to everyone is one of our core values, and family first is one of our others.
Give me that first one again.
Well, our first core value is family first. So we encourage our employees to support their families, and that this is just a job. Be fair to others or be fair to everyone is our 4th core value. And it's just it's a basic way to live life, I think.
Wow. And run a business. I mean, you've been able to grow this business. It sounds like you guys know what you're doing. What's the website of this organization known as Banks Industrial Group?
Banksindustrial.com.
Let me have that one more time.
Banksindustrial.com.
We've been speaking with Chris Banks, president of Banks Industrial Group here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com. That's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. Stick around. We'll be back in a moment. Don't go away. This is Herb Cohen, your host at executiveleadersradio.com. Regarding your career, if you're trying to figure out how to make the most money and also enjoy your career, that's enjoy your career, I mean, really enjoy your career and make the most money, you ought to talk to our CEOs. They've got the bird's eye view of where the really profitable jobs are, where the really profitable jobs are going to be, and they're willing to speak with you regarding their vision for the future and where you may fit into it in order to make the most money and really enjoy your career. Email us, consult@executiveleadersradio.com. That's consult@executiveleadersradio.com to get help from our CEOs regarding where you may want to go in your career to make the most money and really enjoy your career. Consult@executiveleadersradio.com. Back, you're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. I'd like to introduce Sally Stetson, managing partner, Salveson Stetson Group. What is the Salveson Stetson Group, Sally?
A retained executive search firm.
Mm-hmm. And where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
I grew up in northern New Jersey. I'm the second oldest. I have three younger brothers and one older sister.
So you're the second of five. And what was it like growing up the second of five in your family?
I tended to be an organizer. I tended to be the facilitator, the one that cleaned up after other people at times.
Mm-hmm. And you also mentioned that you grew up in a very close family. So what was the effect of you growing up in a very close family and being the organizer in the family on your role in this Salveson Stetson Group nowadays?
There was always someone to play with. There was always someone to support you, whether you were having a good day or a bad day. And I just love the closeness of just to this day having a great family.
And what's that have to do with the company you're building?
Well, when you have a number of employees, you have good days and bad days, and you have typically high performers as well. And so how do you motivate them? How do you make them feel effective, and how do you grow them professionally?
Mm-hmm. So the neighborhood you grew up in, how many kids were in the neighborhood, and what was the effect of that neighborhood on you? What was your role in that neighborhood?
There were about 50 people or so in the neighborhood, and I tended to be an organizer, a socializer, a connector. I organized different games, both physical games, athletic games, as well as just checkers and things like that.
Did you have a feel for where people fit on the team back then, which is what you do nowadays? Did you have an intuitive feel for people back then?
Yes, because at that time I didn't have a lot of athletic prowess. And so I would make sure that I was on the team that had it. So that tends to be how I manipulated, if you will, my capabilities.
Well, it sounds to me like you were able to pick and choose the right teammates, that's actually why companies pay you to help them find people, because you're recruiting people and helping them select the people. It sounds to me like those abilities you had as a kid in order to survive and win is what you're using nowadays to help businesses. Am I correct about that?
That's right. But then also surrounding yourself sometimes with people that are better or more effective than you are.
And what else were you doing as a kid? What other kinds of activities were you up to?
I read a lot. I did play some unorganized sports. There weren't many sports for women or young girls growing up. Mm-hmm. I also was a waitress at a young age too.
Matthew?
Yes, Sally, I'm curious. What were you reading back then?
I loved fiction. I started out with reading A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, and I probably read anything from the Nancy Drew detective series to anything that I could get my hands on.
And you described before a sense of accomplishment. How young were you when you read A Tree Grows in Brooklyn?
I believe I was in 7th grade.
And you described before a sense of accomplishment that you got out of reading those books. Where did that come from?
Well, my mother and father were very strong readers, and we talked about it a lot as a family, any books that we were reading. So it was just something that was encouraged at an early age.
Tell me more about that encouragement and what it meant to you.
Because I admired my father and my mother for very different reasons. When they encourage you and reinforce that, it just, to me, I'm also a pleaser. So to me, that's an easy thing. It just happened naturally.
And what's the connection between reading fiction and loving fiction so much and being an executive search specialist?
I believe it's just all the possible stories that you hear. And it also helps me when I interview candidates, because hopefully I can draw out their own personal stories and ferret out the fiction from the nonfiction.
Mr. Wilson?
Sally, you told us growing up as a kid, there weren't a lot of girls organized sports. So were you playing sports with the boys in the neighborhood? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think we had a neighborhood that was a real cross section of kids, personalities. And so we tended to play athletics as well, touch football, t-ball, a lot of softball. My father was the pitcher. At night, we'd all play. So everybody gathered in our backyard.
Can you tell us about a particular touch football game or an incident maybe?
Oh, yes. I was playing and I have a competitive streak, and I was a little too aggressive and someone tackled me and I blew out my knee. And to this day, I still have to work to keep that knee in good shape.
Mm-hmm. So what do you take with that, that aggressiveness and being able to mix it up with both the men and women to what you do right now at Salveson Stetson?
Jim, it's a good question. So I've had to early on also, many times I was back then the only female in the room. I have a male partner. I also work with a lot of CEOs. And as we know, most CEOs are males. So I've just been able to interact effectively and relate to both men and women as a result of my growing up.
Mr. Carr? Chris is on mute. I understand it. Sally, if you won the lottery, would you quit?
I would not.
Mm-hmm. Why not?
I love what I do. Mm-hmm. And the reason why, because I'm sure the follow-up question is, why do I love what I do?
Yeah.
I get a lot of energy from learning about other people's backgrounds, helping to advance their career. I have a real passion for helping younger people, especially as they start out their career. Even though I don't do that because I'm working with seasoned executives, I kind of see a spark in a young person, and I really enjoy helping them along the way. So
it sounds to me like really turns you on is energy that you can further help develop. And is that true?
Yes, and also it's very satisfying to place an executive and watch them thrive in their career. There's no better satisfaction than that.
Let me ask you a question. Do you have kids?
I do. We've one daughter.
Uh-huh. What's the similarity between being a mom and being the managing partner of Salveson Stetson?
Well, you have to nurture. You have to develop. To this day, I love it when my daughter calls me at night. She lives in Seattle and asks me a management question because she manages a team. So it's really fun to do that with your daughter. Mm-hmm. And I always find that I learn a little bit of tidbits from her that I can apply to my business as well.
Sounds to me like you it sounds like, back in the family when you're the very close family, the second of five and all the neighborhood kids would come play in your place. It sounds to me like you're just like mixing it up with your daughter as well as, not only the people in the business, at Salveson Stetson, but also the recruits, that you're helping recruit and select for your clients. Mr. Wilson, didn't you have another question?
Yeah, you had a number of jobs growing up. You were telling us, I think one of the first ones was you were a waitress. What kind of lessons did you learn there? I think you had a role model that was your boss there.
My boss was really tough. Stetson Hedstrom was his name, Swedish. And He pushed me. I think he saw that I had the capability, but I was slow. So he would push me, but he observed my ability to interact effectively with customers. But he also taught me when I made mistakes, like making a hot fudge sundae with gravy rather than hot fudge, that I needed to figure out how to undo that mistake and how to apologize to a customer so that they walk out the door feeling good about the diner.
You also mentioned you were a camp counselor. What did you do there when you were camp counselor?
Just running 18 little kids, keeping them safe, keeping them engaged, having a great summer so that they can walk away and feeling really good about the experience that they had.
So what do you take with you for keeping your employees engaged, and what do you tell them when they make mistakes?
First of all, I make mistakes all the time. And I think it's really important not to hide that. So we're very comfortable in our firm is let's talk about the mistakes. Let's learn from them. Don't hide them. Let's figure out how to rectify them. So I think there are direct principles there.
Sally, you were how old or young were you when you were managing those 18 kids?
Oh, I was probably 16 or 17.
Those kids were your own age?
No, those kids were younger. They were 5 years old.
But you were corralling them all. You felt comfortable taking responsibility for them all, huh?
Yeah, my mom was a preschool teacher, and I felt like we had our own preschool at home because we had so many kids. So I always related very well to young children, particularly. So it just came naturally to me.
What's the website address for the Salvis and Stetson group?
ssgsearch.com.
Let me have that one more time, please.
Yeah, all S's, ssgsearch.com.
You've been speaking with Sally Stetson, managing partner of Salvis and Stetson Group here on Executive Leaders Radio. Back in a moment. Don't go away. Back, you're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. I'd like to introduce Jason Boyers, president of Rosemont College. Jason, what is Rosemont College?
It's a 100-year-old liberal arts Catholic school. Used to be all women and became co-educational in the early 2000s.
And how many students do you see a year?
We have about 800 students and over 9,000 alums right now living.
Wow. Where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters? Where are you in the pecking order?
I'm from Northwest Ohio, near Toledo, a GM town right out of Bruce Springsteen music video. And I grew up in a lower working class family, son of a single mom for my first 5 years of life. And she had me when she was 19.
And you're the oldest of three kids?
I am the oldest of three children.
Mm-hmm. So you grew up with a single mom, and you mentioned that you were in the green room, that you were pretty tight with your grandmother as well, and that you would go to church with her. And you were the first person in the family that went to college. And what were you doing 8 to 14? What kind of stuff were you up to 8 to 14 years old?
Well, because I did not have athletic ability nor coordination, I decided I was better off earning some money. So, I mean, I started pretty early on. We didn't have a lot growing up. We were a working class family. And so I was in a misery over not having money. I was trying to figure out a way to get some. So I would run errands, mow lawns. I got the paper route going. And then my first real job was at 12 when I was managing a putt-putt. So
Matthew, please give me a hand.
So you were managing a putt-putt at 12. Tell me how'd that come to be?
It was a family friend. They opened a root beer stand with the roller skates and the whole root beer and hot dogs. And behind it, they decided to do a putt-putt. And the grandfather of the gentleman who opened it asked me if I would come and run it. And so I would go there right after school and open it up, close it out, take the cash, reconcile, do everything to kind of run the business.
Did they give you like a big list of all the tasks you had to do to run the place? Like everything you had to do at the beginning of the day and everything you had to do at the end of the day?
Yes, there's a lot that goes into putt-putt. It's a very complicated sport.
But did you figure it out, or did they tell you everything you needed to do?
Yes. And I think that's with every job I've ever had. They tell you what you have to do, and then you figure it out, because you always have to figure out something that someone forgets, right?
What's that have to do with the job as president of Rosemont College?
I think it really taught me, one, how to run your own business, and small colleges are like small businesses. And so you've got to figure out how to make ends meet, how to be innovative, how to get customers, how to treat customers, all of that.
Matthew?
And tell me, so you said you were working with someone there who was that? The dad of the family that owned the root beer place?
Yeah, it was the dad of the family who owned it, and he was probably one of my first mentors. And he was just a tremendous gentleman who was patient. We would chat. He would stick around for the first half hour. We would chat about life, about everything, not just about the business. And I learned a lot from him on how to connect, how to treat people, how to mentor and be a mentor and listen, just how to listen and absorb from other people.
So do those things that he taught you about listening and absorbing and connecting, they have anything to do with what you're doing as the president of Rosemont College?
Yeah, again, I think with any business, and the small college is a business, with any business, the most important thing is, can you connect with people? Do you care about what they're saying? Do you care about their story, their concerns, and how can you relate to them? And that's the heart of moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, Jason, you told us your grandmother had a profound effect in your life. In some ways, she was like a hero to you. Can you tell us a little bit about her?
Yeah, so she grew up through the Depression, and her husband died really shortly after my mother was born. And so they didn't have a lot of money. She could make the best food out of nothing and make it taste just great. And we would walk to mass together as a child. It was one of my earliest memories, and just talk and connect. And she taught me about higher purpose. She taught me about something more important than just what I thought was my story.
How about this idea of unconditional love she taught you about? What did that teach you?
Yeah, the greatest thing was she was really the person who showed me unconditional love. I knew there was nothing I could do, succeed or fail, that she wouldn't be there to love me. And I think that taught me how to take risks. Is if you know someone supports you, loves you, you realize you can take some risks, you can fail, you can succeed, and they're always going to be there at the end. And that heart, along with, again, that higher purpose, were the two things that she instilled in me.
That confidence to take risk, what kind of effect does that have on your presidency at the college?
So I think it's so important. I think that people need to be encouraged to stretch themselves, to fail at something, to fail again. And I want to teach that to our students, but I want them to know the Rosemont community is here for them too. We don't expect them to bat 1,000. We want them, though, to try to stretch themselves. And those are the conversations with the students.
Mr. Carr?
You were raised by a single mom. What was that experience like?
Single mom, and then she married when I was about 5 years old, and we were still a lower working class family. And so it really was dealing with uncertainty. I think if there's anything you learn in, coming into the world that way, and it's dealing with uncertainty and being independent and figuring out how to solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
And what effect does that have on your current job?
Anybody who's ever run a business knows being comfortable with uncertainty is a key attribute to running a business. And I think it's always realizing you have the power to solve things. And I tell my team, there's always a solution. You may not like the solution, but there's always a solution. There's always a way forward. And so,
Mr. Wilson?
What influence did your wife have on your life?
So I was fortunate. I believe the quality of your life often depends on who you marry, and she's incredible. We've been married for 28 years. She is actually a competitive dragon boat racer. I support her. She supports me in all of our endeavors. And so she's also offered me that unconditional love. I had great hair when we met. I don't have great hair now, but she still loves me. So it's a nice thing. It's good.
That support system, is that something that carries over to the college, the supporting one another?
Yeah, it honestly does, because running a business or running a college is a lifestyle. So you have to have that partner who can support you, and we both do. I'm very proud of who she is, and she makes me want to be better.
Matthew?
Jason, we've spent all this time talking about like entrepreneurial stuff and business stuff, but you're in an academic institution. Where'd the academic stuff come from?
I was passionate about reading. I would read everything I could get my hands on as a young child, and that has just carried forward. And I believed, the reason I loved reading, especially novels, is I felt like I only had one life to live and it wasn't enough. So I wanted to see as many lives as I could. And every time I found a good story, I got to live another life. It was brilliant for me.
So are you an academic or an entrepreneur?
Yeah. I am.
What do you mean?
And, so whether you're an academic or an entrepreneur, it's the pursuit of knowledge. And it always, how can you gain more knowledge so you can apply it in ways that enrich your life and the life of your community? And I believe that's what colleges do. I believe that's what our graduates should do. And so I think there's a lot of application, but I think you got to be both. It's about creativity.
You're probably so busy doing all your administrative stuff and running this place that you have no time to interact with the students, do you?
I really try to. Honestly, when I have a bad day, I want to go out walking and see the students because they remind me of why we do what we do. And there are all kinds of problems.
What do you mean they remind you of why you do what you want to do? Tell me what that means.
Because I was a first generation college student. My life has been rich because I'm graduating. I want the same thing for them. And so I'm always reminded when I'm crunching numbers, when I'm trying to figure out enrollment figures, when I'm working through regulations, it's not what it's about. What it's about is that student who comes to me with this great story that they're so excited about. That's what it's about. It's about purpose. And that goes back to my grandmother, higher purpose. The story is more than just you.
Jason, you're really built for your job. It sounds like it's not a job. It sounds like it's your passion.
Yeah, I call myself the accidental president because I didn't even think I'd go to college, let alone be a president of one. But what I would tell you is what drives me, what feeds me is purpose. And I think that's so important for any leader is you have to have purpose. And if I don't have purpose, the money's not as important to me as the purpose. That's what matters.
And in a nutshell, the purpose is?
The purpose is paving the way for others to join you along this great adventure. I mean, that's raising economic destinies, changing lives. And I tell the students all the time, life is not about you. You are about life. And so
website address of Rosemont College?
That's rosemont.edu.
You've been speaking with Jason Boyers, president of Rosemont College here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be back in a moment right after this quick break. Don't go away. This is Herb Cohen, your Executive Leaders Radio host. And the CEOs we've interviewed on this show are interested in helping you get your business started and helping you grow your business. Whether you're aware of the issues or whether you want the CEOs to give you a hand identifying the issues in getting your business started and or in growing your business, why don't you email us at consult@executiveleadersradio.com. That's consult@executiveleadersradio.com. Whether you're interested in having our CEOs speak with you regarding getting your business started or growing your business, send us an email at consult@executiveleadersradio.com, and we'll be sure to get back to you shortly with some help. Back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, and we'd like to introduce Michael Raphael, CEO of Indie Vets. Michael, what is Indie Vets? What are you guys doing?
We are a staffing company. We hire veterinarians and help them work in animal hospitals.
And how large or how small is this company? How'd you get a job with it?
Yep. So we're about 150 people. 120 of that is veterinarians. And I started the company back in 2018.
And where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
Grew up and spent most of my life just outside Philadelphia and in Center City. I have one sister. I'm the older brother.
And 8 to 14, what kind of stuff were you up to?
Oh, man. Trying to do a lot of sports. I played baseball, basketball, soccer, tennis, mediocre at all of them. Found a little bit of a calling in sort of the offbeat sports like crew and ice hockey. Did a ton of reading, and those are the highlights.
Mm-hmm. And Matthew, what do you think?
Hey, Michael, how young were you when you started making money?
Well, my parents were big believers that you should work. So, when I was 15, when I could get my work permit for the first time, I started working, and I was at an ice cream shop just outside of Philadelphia.
And what did you do different at the ice cream shop from the other kids?
Well, I don't know what they saw in me, but like for whatever reason, they saw me as a responsible 15-year-old. And so after just a few weeks working there, they had me kind of closing up at night, locking the doors, counting the money, making sure enough ice cream was there, and no one was eating everything on the down low.
And I think you told us before you were even doing a little bit of training for them, right? Tell me about that.
Well, I don't know if you guys know this, but there is the correct way to scoop ice cream out of a container. Okay, you got to go down the sides, then you go down the other sides, and then there's a little strip in the middle. You take that last. This was like one of the most important things you learn when you're scooping ice cream. But they saw, I guess for me, it was they saw an opportunity for me to go help them open other stores. So at 15, they were kind of sending me around Philadelphia and South Jersey, and I was going in there and helping train the teams on how to scoop ice cream the right way.
So what does appreciating and understanding and being able to teach the right way to scoop ice cream, which strikes me as a kind of funny thing, never having scooped ice cream, what does that have to do with being the CEO of Indie Vets?
Well, I think what was cool about it is like, who knew there was a right way? So like, going in there, finding out, doing some research. I mean, I'm kind of a research oriented person. You get this information and then like, let's share it. So like, I think it's the same way today in Indie Vets. We're trying to find out what's going on. Veterinarians have a really tough existence. We're trying to make it better. So we find out what that is and we try and build a company that way. I mean, it's based on sort of things that are real.
And when you talk about that kind of research and kind of learning things, tell me about your mom and dad.
So my dad is a MD, solo entrepreneur, solo practitioner. My mom was a school teacher, and together they sort of ran my dad's business. And so for me, I saw an entrepreneurial dad who was driven and was helping people. That was sort of the theme.
Which one of them are you more like?
I definitely have pieces of both of them. I mean, my dad's drive and research, he loves to read as well. I see that in myself. And also with my mom, just like tenacity to sort of do it right, because if you don't, be careful what might happen. So like those things combined, I think gave me a lot of motivation.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, Michael, you told us you were a rower in high school. That for those who aren't familiar, it's a pretty rigorous sport. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Sure. It's a brutal sport. I think it's for people who like can't do like other sports well, but basically you row as hard as you can, and you can't breathe after a while. But my job was, I was a starboard rower, and so I was sitting right behind the first rower in the boat. And so my mission was to follow him and sort of like keep everyone rowing together. That was the plan.
So you were kind of setting the pace, getting everyone in sync. What does that have to do with what you do at Indie Vets?
Right. I mean, yeah, I see the parallels. I mean, my whole job, I see it as the CEO of the company, as the founder, is to just bring in a great team, give them everything they need to be successful, help them, do the best they can. That's the job.
So would you say with the parallel with rowing, even hard things are worth doing if there's a purpose and goal at the end of it?
I would say so. I mean, like for me, like if it's not hard and it's not like a challenge, like it's not worth the journey. So, like that's a big part of it.
Mm-hmm. So you like a challenge. If it's not a challenge, you don't want to do it. You like the challenge. Mr. Carr, what are you thinking?
It says that you mentioned that you started 5 different businesses. How young were you when you started having these entrepreneurial ideas?
I mean, I think I was thinking about it from a really young age, but I ended up going into journalism and I was sort of writing about other people's success. And I realized I really want to give this a shot. And then my best friend from middle school called me up and he's like, we should really start a company. And we did. And it was a tremendous experience and it failed. And, that was probably the best learning from it, which is, things can go wrong and then you can come back, you can try again. So we tried again. And, today I'm really proud of what we're doing at Indie Vets. It's all the work that's taken so far to get there.
Mm-hmm. Can I go back there a minute? Wait, so you're working as a journalist, right? Got a steady paycheck, right? You got your job. You probably got some benefits or something. And your best friend from middle school calls you and says, let's start a business, right?
That's right.
And so you said, no, I have my job. What are you talking about?
No, I mean, like, sometimes you just need that push. You need someone to believe in you. And Shannon believed in me, and we jumped right in. He had some experience in business. I had zero. Together, we launched this thing. And it was amazing. And the best part was we stayed close friends as a follow, and we still are close friends today. And if you've ever started a business with a friend, that's an accomplishment on its own.
It is, but I want to go back. Like, where did you get that internal drive to be able to say yes and go? Like, where did that come from? Who gave you that? What gave you that?
I think it's a mix of my dad's entrepreneurship and sort of do it on your own, and my mom's belief that you better do it right. And so I felt like this was the time. If I was ever going to do it, I was 30 years old. Give it a shot and do it with someone who is going to believe in you and support you. That was the best part about it.
Was your dad, was you watched your dad as an entrepreneur while you were growing up with your mom helping out in the business too? Was that like all success?
No, there were tough times. They started a side business selling women's shoes, and it didn't work out. And the problem was the folks who ran that franchise, they weren't good people. So, you realize that there's going to be challenges. I saw that up close and personal. I was working in that store as a kid, helping my parents out. But like, what I also saw is they came back from it, and they ran a successful medical practice. So, you just got to keep going.
How were they able to come back from it? How do you get the strength to keep going?
That's a good question. I think, my mom's parents, they were like first generation. So same with my dad, and they did not come from wealth. They built it all from the ground up. And I think that was just infused in them. And it definitely, it's followed me too.
How young were you when you were working in your parents' shoe store?
Probably a teenager, mid-teens, probably around the same time as the ice cream store.
And what were you doing in the shoe store?
Unloading boxes, stacking things on the, putting things out on the, for display, anything they needed. They were spending their entire, mom was spending most of her days there, my dad his weekends.
So what did you learn working in a shoe store at 14 or 15? Does it have anything to do with indie vets?
I think what I saw there was the ability to sort of be entrepreneurial and sort of create your own future. They had a successful business as a medical profession, but they wanted more, and even though it didn't work out, I think it did bring my parents closer together because they tried something and they gave it a shot.
Huh. So there's this theme of sticking together that I hear your parents did, even though they had some issues or some failures, things that didn't work out, and you and your partner did. So you're really a bonded kind of guy. You really like working with, and you also mentioned that one of the things you were looking for when you started this business was to work with kind people. Well, what's that all about?
I guess I see myself as loyal. And when people choose to take that risk and work with me, I want to support them. I want to figure out what they do well, what they enjoy, and I'm looking for a place to put them in the organization. And so, I think that's the idea there. And all the people that started Invest with us, they're still with us today. And, that I'm proud of that, and it hasn't been the same path, right? We figured it out as we went.
You proud of what?
I'm proud of the fact that we brought this team together. One of our core values is highly competent and nice. So it's not just that you do the job well, it's just how you do it. So it's more than just being technically skilled. You got to also have the right approach. And that's been the focus for me when I finally had a chance to sort of run my own business. I was looking for good people. We have this no jerk policy, right? But the positive way of saying that really is we're looking for people that sort of share our point of view and our values.
What is the website address for Indie Vets?
IndieVets.com, INDEVets.com.
We've been speaking with Michael Raphael, CEO of Indie Vets here on Executive Leaders Radio. Matthew, can you give us a rundown on who we've had on the air today, please?
Yeah, it's been a really fun show this morning, Herb. We started off with Chris Banks, the president of Banks Industrial Group. Then we had Sally Stetson, the managing partner of Salveson Stetson Group. We had Jason Boyers, the president of Rosemont College. And just now we wrapped it up with Michael Raphael, the CEO of Indie Vets.
I'd like to thank my co-hosts, Jim Wilson, Newmark, Matthew Shapiro, Obermeyer, and Chris Carr, Farotech, for giving me hand structuring the questions. Hope you're providing our listening audience an educational and entertaining show. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com. That's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. And again, Jim Wilson from Newmark, Matthew Shapiro, Obermeyer, Chris Carr from Farotech. Thank you for giving me him structure into questions. Audience, thank you for listening. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a radio show. And please have a nice day. Bye-bye.